So the goal of this video is to bring awareness to the spike of anxiety during COVID times, right? And normalize the stressful and fearful moments that we are all going through, because it is a universal stressor. We have been seeing quite a bit of anxious individuals coming into the clinic, quite a bit. And that's why we decided to sit together and talk about it and try to make it seem as a regular conversation more than a taboo. My name's Gabby. I'm the social worker for the Nurse Practitioner Clinic, sites Essex and in Windsor.
I'm Karen. I'm the low back admin, and I'm going to talk about how I cope with anxiety.
And I'm Shelley. I'm one of the nurse practitioners at the clinic. And I'm the one that actually brought this to the attention of the clinic, because as a nurse practitioner, I am seeing a lot of patients who are going through anxiety. And I guess we want people to know that anxiety is an emotion, and we all experience at some point of our lives. Some people, for them, anxiety could be mild, but for other people it can be very severe and intense, and it becomes overwhelming, and people get very, very stressed. And it's during times like this, dealing with the pandemic, that anxiety can take a toll on your health. So we want to make sure that we talk about some of the stressors and how to cope with the anxiety, and moving forward, how to make sure that people are staying healthy during this time.
Shelley, I do want to ask you about the spike of anxiety that you've been seeing, because I know you have been referring people over to me quite a bit within the past 6 months.
Yeah, I think when the pandemic first started, people didn't really understand it, for one, so they had a lot of questions, and then I don't think we expected it to go on for this long. So patients now are finding it very, very difficult. Their whole life has turned upside down. For some, their kids now are at home, they're doing virtual care at home. Mm-hmm. Parents had to make accommodations for them with their work. They're finding that they have to help them with school. It's almost like homeschooling your kid. You never thought that you would have to do that and leave your job. Some people have lost their job.
Yeah.
And people are just, they don't really know what is going to happen tomorrow. It's how long is this going to go on for? And it seems like every day there's something new. There's so much information out there as well. The media is really, really, that's all they're covering. Yeah. And every day it keeps changing. So, today they might tell you one thing, and tomorrow there's something else that they come up with. So it's just that uncertainty. And when people don't know things, that really, really increases their stress level, and it really brings on the anxiousness, I find. So when they're coming to see me, they don't know really, first they want answers, and I don't have all the answers. And they also want to know, how do they cope? How can they get through this? And, what can they do? I think one of the things that we wanted to talk about too were the unhealthy coping skills compared to the healthy coping skills, and we really wanted to make sure that people have the differential piece to it.
Shelley, you were telling me last time we talked about this was that everybody at some point has anxiety in their lives, right?
Yes.
And for some people it's so mild, but with this pandemic it's been flaring up like crazy. I see patients coming in and they're saying, oh, I don't know why Shelley referred me over. She thinks I'm anxious, right? And until you give them an hour and then they officially let it all out and they realize, wow, these are a lot of changes at once. This isn't just one thing. This is work, this is school, this is wearing a mask is just on its own a difficult task. And Kieran, you said that you've been, you are anxious. You're an anxious person, right? So I'm wondering now, how is it that you're coping with this during this anxiety? Do you find it that it's been getting worse?
It's getting better now, but before, when I would get groceries and stuff, I'd be like, should I say hi to the person I know? I get nervous. I don't know if I should say hi, because I don't want to be rude to them. If we're invited to a wedding, I don't know if I should go to the wedding, or because I don't want someone to get sick, and I don't want to get sick. So I'm worried about that too.
It's crazy how it's just as simple as, how do I say hello to somebody, right? Even just that was such a simple task before. Now it's becoming stressful. It's like, oh, how do I say hi? Are they comfortable? Am I comfortable, right? Do I take the hello? Do I take the hug? So just that grocery shopping is difficult right now, right? People fear that they're going to bring the virus home with them too. So that's definitely something that we can talk about. So before we all got together, we decided what are the main points we wanted to kind of address. And you've been saying that sometimes when they come to you, you said that they were mostly in an extreme scenario at this point.
I think that's when people really start to realize that, wow, I am anxious. Maybe there is something going on. Maybe I do have anxiety. Because until you're put to that test, you go on with your everyday life. You don't really realize it. It's when you're, again, hit with that stress, and those stressors is when you'll see it. And, you can talk to them and you can tell them that these are some of the things that, you may want to try. And that's exactly why I refer them to you, is because you specialize in this. This is what you do, is you give them some coping strategies to get them through their day. So I do recommend, finding something that they enjoy. It is important for people not to isolate themselves. Although we're supposed to be in isolation at certain times, it is very important that we get outside and we socialize. These kids that this is all new for them. That's what I'm finding with kids and teenagers. Their schooling has changed. Virtually online learning is very, very difficult for some kids. They cannot concentrate, right? It's hard. They're spending 2.5 hours in front of a computer doing one class. I mean, when you're doing math for 2.5 hours, that's very, very difficult. And they're not seeing their friends. Think about the kids that are going to school, that the little ones who can't even go and hug their friends or, spend snack time like they normally do. So, and everyone expresses anxiety in different ways. And I think with children, they may express it differently, and they may be lashing out at home, or because they don't verbalize that to their mom and dad.
Absolutely.
So those are the things that I'm picking up in my office, and that's usually when I'll refer them to you, so they can come up with some.
I was just going to say that I have a lot of parents coming in and saying, "Oh, I don't know, maybe it's a rebellious stage, right?" Yeah. But it's mostly because they don't have an outlet. They don't have a way to let out all that energy, all that, right? When you're a kid, I mean, it's probably overflowing, all that energy and things that you want to do and so on and so on. And all you want them to do is sit at a computer and just stare at it the whole day long. It's impossible. In fact, it's difficult for myself. So how do we expect a 7-year-old to do it, right? I know that you have been referring over people to me that say, "Oh, Shelly said I have anxiety." And I'm like, okay, yeah, because I'm overeating. And I was like, okay, so we can talk about this, let's talk it through. And they tell me it's emotional eating, it's not anxiety. And I'm like, okay, how can we make this connection, right? How can we identify the triggers that are happening right now? And the fact that we cope with it by the easiest thing we can find usually. And usually it's a temporary fix instead of a healthy and a long-term one. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to kind of bring self-awareness to that and say, are you coping with this whole pandemic and all these triggers? Are you coping with it in a healthy way or in an unhealthy way? Is it a quick fix, or is it something that you're working towards, right? I know that you've come across a lot of unhealthy temporary fixes right away, and that's when you refer them over. Do you recall anything that it's been like a pattern, anything that's been common?
What I find is people, when they're under stress and they're dealing with anxiety, they don't always know how to get through the day. And yeah, we talked about some of the unhealthy things, but we also want to focus on the healthy ways to cope. So for them, we talked about getting outside, getting outdoors, going out for walks, doing something that they really, really enjoy, that it can take their mind off of some of the stress that they're dealing with. And I think people with anxiety in general need to know that it is very thought-provoking, and counseling is something that they can use to help with that thought pattern and see if they can recycle it so that they're not always focused on the stress itself.
Usually we treat anxiety with cognitive behavioral therapy, right? So the whole process of, okay, how do I change this behavior that I'm having? So whether it's drinking alcohol, or whether it's having panic attacks, right? Or whether we're overeating. So we can kind of analyze what our triggers are and slowly kind of reverse the cycle. And with that, you need self-care and you need coping techniques like Shelly said, going outside, doing something you enjoy every day. We get caught up in thinking, hey, I need to do this, I have to do this, I'm worried about my kids, how are they adapting? What about my job? Am I doing everything that I need to get done? That we completely forget about ourselves, right? And this is a time where we need to take care of ourselves the most, if anything. So Kieran, do you mind telling us some coping techniques that you've been using during this time?
Right now I do like meditating or journalizing or walking on the treadmill.
Okay, that's good. You're increasing your endorphins, right? Meditating is very grounding. It's very positive, and it also slows down our racing thoughts. So that's always important as well. In general, relaxation techniques, even just sitting down for 5 minutes and taking deep breaths, right? Sometimes we just forget to breathe. We're so caught up in everything we need to do that we don't have time for that anymore. A routine is important because one of the things that is very big that's part of our routine is sleep. So if you can keep a healthy sleeping routine, then your mood will be very much stable. But if we're losing sleep because we're having racing thoughts at night, right, and we're worried, then the lack of sleep will definitely make it a lot worse for us, right? So keeping a good sleeping schedule, keeping a good morning schedule. So whether it is to get up, go out for a walk, right? Take some deep breaths, shower, and then get on with your day. Try to maintain that healthy routine, even if it's those 2 hours a day. That's all you need. And then for the rest of the day, you're free. You can do whatever it is that you please, right? We do want to talk about how important it is to catch it before it escalates, right?
Right.
So we don't realize we're anxious until we're all the way up there. Point is that we're here for you. And that talking to Shelly and then referring you over to social work, talking to people that you can relate to always works, right? We are not here alone, and we're here to support you on this. Counseling is a form of talking it through. So we can give you a bunch of suggestions, and then you try 50 of them and they don't work, but 3 of them really do work. And then they're healthy ones, the ones that stay with you for a long time, right? We have distractions and we have coping techniques, the ones that actually do the trick. And that's what we need, and we need to focus on ourselves during this time as well. And I think it's important, especially if you're taking care of other people, your kids, your parents. Other than that, you can always come in. We're always open for questions and concerns. And like I said, it's you. One session doesn't mean you need to have 12, right? One session can just be getting some information. And it's open, it's there for you. I hope that you either learned something, took something from this. We do want you to know that anxiety is definitely a normal reaction right now.
Yes.
And everybody's going through it, and it's better if we bring awareness to it so that way we can all cope with it together instead of feeling like you have to do this alone. So we're always here to support, like Shelly said, and just keep powering through and stay safe.